president. Continuing live coverage from California at our nation's capital on MSNBC.
He always told us that for America, the best was yet to come.
Barbara and I mourned the loss of a great president, and for us, a great friend.
He always believed that the Cold War would come to an end and that freedom would triumph. He believed everybody wanted to be free, and I think that will be his enduring legacy.
His work is done, and now a shining city awaits him. May God bless Ronald Reagan.
Good evening, I'm Chris Matthews with MSNBC's special coverage of Ronald Reagan's state funeral. And this evening, President George W. Bush has joined thousands of Americans and paid his final respects to former President Reagan as he lies in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. Joining me are two longtime friends of President Reagan. Ed Meese was Attorney General in the Reagan administration, and Jim Kuhn was a longtime assistant, a personal assistant to the president. Was there any change in the man who we're laying to rest this week, intellectually, from the man you met?
Not really. Of course, he learned from experience. And
did he move right or move left?
But I would say philosophically, he was the same guy when he left the presidency in 1989 that he was when he became governor in 1967.
When he watched before him the difficulties that conservatism was having in this country, a very charismatic champion, Barry Goldwater, who went down to horrendous defeat, did he learn something from that about how he would have to come onto the national stage?
I think he learned, but I also think his personality was different, his approach to things. He had an optimistic view of politics, an optimistic view of policy, and he always said he was the cup is half full devotee rather than the cup is half empty. And I think he put a smiling face on conservatism, if you would.
Now, you were his policy director and domestic policy director in the White House. You were Attorney General for the president. What were you during his gubernatorial years?
I was originally his legal affairs secretary, and those were in the days when he had to worry about capital punishment, clemency. I was his liaison with law enforcement during the campus unrests and the urban riots during that time. Then, after 2 years, I became the head of his staff and was his executive assistant for the rest of the term.
If you had to compare the difficulties in his career, certainly I wasn't there, but we were watching from a distance, his difficulties with the students at Berkeley during the Vietnam era, a lot of thrashing of him, his good name in public, lots of rioting, lots of rallying against him, and then the Iran-Contra period, which was definitely the down point in the 8 years of his presidency. What was the toughest time to be his friend and to be his ally?
Well, I think the Iran-Contra situation was tougher because in the Berkeley unrest and in the other campuses that were involved, basically, this was a matter of policy, a matter of carrying out his responsibilities. In the Iran-Contra, there were those who were trying to impugn his credibility, and although they never were able to, I think that hurt him, or was more difficult for him than anything else.
Jim Kuhn, how did it, the amazing thing many people would find is that Ronald Reagan, who died in his 90s and suffered for almost a decade, in fact a decade with Alzheimer's disease, was president pretty late in life, in his 70s. What was that like? Was it tough for him to keep up the pace, to keep moving around?
Not at all, I'll tell you, Chris. I mean, it's amazing. The man turned 70 years old less than a month after he was elected in 1981. And give you an example, people would come into the Oval Office in the second term, and they might be 10, 15 years younger than he, and he looked like their son. And it never ceased to amaze me, the difference. And it was great genes, it was great discipline. He worked out every day, lifted weights, he took good care of himself.
And when he got Alzheimer's, was that a quick thing? Did that just come over him in a couple of months? My mom got it rather quickly. She comes like, you can't tell the time with a regular watch. Things like that give it away. You can't cook meals with any organizational ability. How did it come upon Ronald Reagan?
Well, I can tell you this, there's certainly no sign of that at all. I mean, he was
in his
strong.
Official time.
He was strong when he came into the White House, and he was of strong mind and body when he left, and was for a period of years back in California. He was busy traveling, speaking, writing, and then at some point later on, several years after he left the White House, there was a slowdown, and then he was diagnosed. But
the reason I asked this, Ed, is I was watching him on a PBS program the other day, which was pretty damn tough on Ronald Reagan, I must say. I don't know if you've seen it. No. And I kept thinking about a guy facing the fire of criticism in your mid-70s, your late 70s, with half the country growling at you. And I said, how does he get up in the morning? How does he move around? How does he face the trimmer? And you were with him.
Well, Jim is right. It wasn't until the first I noticed it was, I would say, sometime probably in 1992 or 1993. I was visiting with him in Los Angeles, and this was, I think, 93. And I said, Mr. President, you're sure looking good, because he was. And he said, yes, but he said, my mind has started to play tricks on me. And I think it did come very quickly during that time. When he was in office, I was with him repeatedly for long periods of time, and he never showed the effects of his age. You go back to the 1985 Geneva meeting with Gorbachev. Gorbachev, as you know, is much younger, and you look at and say, who's the older man and who's the younger man, and you would definitely reverse positions.
Now, he seemed very comfortable at the highest level. When you were with him, there's funny stories about Ronald Reagan. He was supposed to get ready for one of these big summits with Gorbachev, and there was something on TV the night before. Was it Sound of Music? And he just couldn't resist staying up all night and watching it. Do you remember that?
Well, he loved to watch movies. I don't remember him watching that movie that night, but he definitely enjoyed watching the golden oldies, as he referred to them, but not that particular night.
Did he ever watch his old movies himself, his old movies?
Well, but yes, but you had to ask him, though. I mean, you had to make a special request to watch a Reagan movie. I mean, he would never do it, and you had to beg him almost to get him to do it.
Who did he like in his business? Who did he look up to? William Holden, I guess?
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart?
Errol Flynn.
Errol. Yeah.
The greatest.
Ray Milland.
Right. There's a funny story about that. I don't know if you've heard it.
I heard a story where somebody comes up to him and thinks he's Ray Milland.
Right, exactly.
And he signs his autograph, Ray Milland.
Exactly.
He didn't want to ruin the guy's day.
That's one of his favorite stories.
That's humility. I don't know many people like that. Anyway, Jim Kuhn, and we stick with us. We're coming back with more of the coverage of what looks to be an interesting evening, because President Bush is going to pay a visit on Nancy Reagan later tonight at Blair House, the official guest residence for the White House. That's a very poignant moment to come tonight. We'll be back with more on MSNBC's coverage of this big week, this final week of Ronald Reagan's trip to Washington the last time.
It can think for itself, strike fear in the hearts of hackers, and laugh in the face of disaster. It can transform itself, grow into whatever the future demands, work virtually anywhere, and propel entire companies, industries, and economies forward. Can your network do this? It can if it's designed by the world's networking company, AT&T.
We have created a monster. Channeled lightning into the heart of an amazing vehicle. One with the mind of a car, the soul of a sport utility, and a beautiful new body. Enlivened by a spirited 250 horsepower engine. It is alive. Introducing the completely recreated all-wheel drive Subaru Outback. The new Subaru.
Car.
200 horsepower V6, traction control, and sliding rear seats. Chevy Malibu Max, an American revolution.
Welcome back to the LendingTree.com Turn the Tables Telethon, where bankers are waiting to compete over your home equity loan.
Call 1-800-555-TREAT, fill out one form, and get up to 4 offers in minutes. Now, normally, we don't do telethons, but with home equity rates as low as 3.75% APR, we had to let you know.
Call now to take advantage of the no closing cost option.
Go to LendingTree.com or call now, 1-800-555-TREAT.
When banks compete, you win at LendingTree.com.
Well, I think the outside is sometimes a reflection of what's inside, but ultimately, what's really important is the dirt you can't see. Like some gasolines will leave dirt on my intake valves. That's why I like a gas that helps keep my engine clean and running well, like Chevron with Techron, because otherwise the outside doesn't matter much, does it?
Help keep vital engine parts clean. Chevron with Techron.
What can one do?
Lose
Lose yourself in the excitement. Introducing The Fan, only at Comcast.net. A revolutionary new way to watch movie trailers and videos online. It's easy. Just click and start them instantly. Now with Comcast high-speed internet.
We're watching a scene of just a few moments ago of the President, Andy Card, the Chief of Staff at the White House, Laura Bush. They're arriving at that wonderful little townhouse across the street from the White House. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's where Harry Truman lived when they were refurbishing the White House back in the late 1940s. There the President is going up the brownstone steps with the First Lady. They're going to be greeted inside by the former First Lady, Nancy Reagan, who's been having one tough week, we all know. And you can see everybody rooting for her out there in the streets of this city. You know, that's what grabbed me the other night, Ed, is the, and Jim. I watched Nancy Reagan turn around on the airplane the other night when she headed east, and she just loved the fact that everybody was turning out.
Yeah.
Because she had obviously worked on planning this and wanted it to be a wonderful goodbye to her husband. And then I saw her walking down the street the other day, and even though it was like a church when people applaud at an odd time, they were applauding at church as the caisson went by. And she was acknowledging it. And I know that wasn't the plan. The plan was probably to be solemn and play the widow in a sense. And she said, no, these people are here to applaud my husband.
They were indeed. And to applaud her. When she got out of the car, you know, there was a spontaneous applause for her. I think there's great respect for Nancy Reagan, both for the way in which she cared for her husband, particularly recently, but also for her personally as a model of a First Lady.
Let me ask you about the personal lives of these two people, Ronald and Nancy Reagan. I always say to people, Ronald Reagan may have been good-looking and may have had a great voice, because Tip O'Neill, my old boss, thought, oh, he just, you know, he had the good looks, and he passed the screen test, and he just got a break. I always thought, here's a guy who had a very bad-ending first marriage, a difficult marriage. He ended up on the bottom. He had a movie career that sort of went sour in the early 50s. He never really reclaimed what he had before the war in terms of prominence, and he had a lot of friends who were ahead of him, which must have made it very, very difficult. He had a TV career which was coming to an end for a lot of reasons in the early 60s. Every time he seemed to be losing the current deal, he went back and found a new way to make himself into something bigger.
Well, I think
because his TV career was bigger than his movie career. It was big time.
His TV career was big. Actually, his movie career was still pretty good right up to the end. What happened was a lot of his time was taken, though, with the Screen Actors Guild. He really got into that, particularly the fight against the communists to keep them from taking over the motion picture industry. But you're right, he got into television. He did a great job there. And it was while he was in television, he still had the Death Valley Days, which was a pretty popular show. But that's when they came to him and suggested he should run for governor. He wasn't at all enthusiastic about that. That wasn't his idea.
Okay, what was the mix? Sweat and luck of the Reagan success story? Because it's the end of his life now. What percentage of the kids watching right now are you going to tell them 50% luck and good looks and all those things, and 50% sweat or what?
Well, I think most of luck is being prepared to take advantage of opportunities, and that's where he was. He was reading all the time. He was preparing without knowing it for being a governor and being a president, just because of his interests, his wide-ranging, and that sort of thing. So it was not.
Jim Kuhn, your thoughts?
Ronald Reagan was the ultimate optimist. Never doubted himself. In fact, it was one thing he was incapable of, and that was self-doubt.
Really?
Yeah, that's right.
What did he get up singing? Oh, what a beautiful morning every time he get up.
But he believed it, though.
Did he?
He believed it. Yes.
And also he didn't have a lot of introspection. He also had a great religious faith, as you probably know.
I've learned that.
And he really believed that God had a plan for his life. He didn't know what it was, but he was very confident that the next steps would unfold.
There's the big question.